The most dangerous kind of grizzly bear to humans are a mother bear with her cubs. So when a photographer walked outside his house to take photos of a grizzly without noticing its cubs nearby, it charged and brutally mauled him to a bloody pulp. Hit that like button and subscribe right now. This is the terrifying grizzly bear attack on Jordan Carberry. Welcome to Final Affliction. Our story today takes place in Bella Coola, a valley found in British Columbia, Canada. It stretches 80 kilometers and is known to be a very scenic and beautiful area, with a diverse landscape of meadows, forests, mountains, and rivers, as well as a long history of world-renowned craftsmanship. There really is something for everyone. As picturesque as this area may be, it is also situated in the Great Bear Rainforest, thusly named for its inhabitants, specifically many wild species of cougars, wolves, and of course, bears. But these bears are special. Although there are 1,400 grizzly bears living there, this area is home to a distinctive subspecies of black bear, the Mauled bear, also known as the spirit bear, as 1/10 of the cubs are born with the recessive gene causing a white coat of fur. As a result of its unique residence, the Great Bear Rainforest has been protected by the government of British Columbia since 2016 to stop industrial logging, meaning that 85% of the ancient forests will be kept safe. Given that the population of Bella Coola is only 2,100 people, there is approximately one bear to every 2 people in the area. Despite this, bear attacks have been very rare and they usually live side by side fairly peacefully. However, there is one incident that would change that forever. Jordan Carberry was a park ranger living in Bella Coola in 2018. He enjoyed his job, it was fairly easy, and he was able to work in such a beautiful place every day. On July 2nd, he was returning home after a lovely holiday with his friends to celebrate his 50th birthday. And as he approached his home, he saw 2 grizzly bears climbing a cherry tree nearby. This was not uncommon as the fruit on the trees were ripe, and bears are well-known cherry lovers, and they actually help with the dispersion process for the trees. They seemed quite large, so Jordan assumed they were just typical adult bears searching for food and meant no harm, although he would rather they were further away from his house. He continued up his driveway to encourage them to leave his property, and they eventually took the hint, traipsing back into the forests. He didn't give the interaction a second thought as he was used to seeing bears all the time, and he went to bed as soon as he got in. At 5 a.m. the next morning, he woke up and started to get ready as he usually did when something caught his eye out of the window. There was something moving behind the trees, and so he assumed it was the cherry-eating adult grizzlies from last night. He grabbed his camera and rushed downstairs, leaving the house to take photos that he thought he would later share with his friends. He was an avid photographer, and living in the beautiful place that he did meant that he was able to take amazing photos of his daily life. He figured that if he didn't spook the bears, they would ignore him and he could get some nice pictures of them eating the cherries. So he walked out into the forest, and 36 feet from his front door, he had a clear view of the bears in the tree. While he was watching the bears, one of them fell from the tree and suddenly something moved next to Jordan. He turned to see what it was and his heart stopped. He had made a mistake. The bears in the tree were actually cubs and were being supervised by their mother, the very large bear that was currently staring at him from 80 feet away. She had heard her cub cry out, and upon spotting Jordan, assumed the cry to be his fault. He knew that he was in a lot of trouble. She began walking towards him and then running straight towards him. Although he had been trained on how to react to grizzly bears and knew in the back of his mind that he should play dead, his natural instincts took over in the face of a 500-pound killing machine sprinting right at him. He turned and ran, knowing that he was only a short distance from his house and thought maybe he could get in the door before she mauled him to death. He was running for his life, and he knew that the next few seconds could determine the rest of his life, however long that may be. Just 10 feet from his door, the bear smacked him in the back with her huge paw, and he was sent flying onto the ground. He was winded by the impact and barely had any time to register what was happening to him as he tried to stand up again. Immediately, the bear jumped on him and grabbed him by his head, trying to crush his skull in her strong jaws. He was terrified as he knew there was no way he could overpower the animal. Suddenly, he felt his feet leave the floor as he was lifted by his skull into the air. He thought he must be done for. The force was too much for his skull, and a large part of his scalp was ripped off, the pain blinding Jordan as he fell to the floor, blood gushing everywhere. He thought he could maybe crawl away, as the bear was now holding his scalp in her mouth, so he was hoping she would just leave. He was wrong. After throwing Jordan's scalp aside, the bear began mauling his whole body. She tore off his ear and began to rip apart his chest, seemingly taking the cub's fall personally against Jordan, and it was like she had decided that he had to pay for the pain of her cub. He knew that his time was running out, as the animal was not showing any signs of slowing down, seemingly determined to mercilessly tear him apart. He realized that he was not going to be able to wait it out or hope that she would leave, and in that moment, he remembered some of the training that he had been given in the past for this exact situation. He began to punch her in the head with as much strength as he could, which just further angered the bear. She flipped him onto his side to get his fists away from her and continued her attack. He quickly started kicking her in the eye with his heel, adrenaline increasing his strength, even though he had now lost a significant amount of blood. The bear started to back away a little, confused by the sudden rebuttal attack, and this gave Jordan enough time to pull himself to his feet again. After a second, the bear charged at him again, planning to end the fight once and for all. Jordan tried to punch her once again, this time aiming for her nose, but she managed to dodge his fists. As he continued to punch at the bear, he was able to slowly back away into his house and shut the door, waiting for the attack to continue. He knew that this door was only thin and the animal would easily be able to break it down with just a few body slams, but nothing happened. He waited for the crash of the bear entering the house to finish the job, but she never did. Instead, she just walked back into the forest, returned to her cubs, and left the scene. Although Jordan was thankful that the bear had now left him alone, he was now faced with another problem: surviving his extensive injuries. He lived in the middle of nowhere, he didn't have phone service. Who would he contact for help? He had no choice, he had to save himself. He managed to grab his car keys from upstairs, the adrenaline from the attack slowly wearing off, but he knew that if he passed out, he would never wake up again. Holding his chest closed, he left the house without checking his surroundings, and the bear had reappeared. She started charging at him once again, but he managed to get into the car and drive away. He was praying that he would make it to the hospital, praying that he would be able to see his wife and daughter again. Amazingly, he survived the drive and made it to his local hospital, where he was immediately airlifted to the Vancouver hospital. He had to have many surgeries in order to save his life. His right ear had been torn off, half of his scalp was missing, he had several puncture wounds from where the bear had tried to rip him apart, and an umbilical hernia from the repetitive climb from the bear. He had a long recovery journey ahead of him, but he was just grateful to be alive. He counted his blessings that she hadn't caught him that final time as he reached the car, and accepts that the accident was fully his fault, as he shouldn't have risked his life just for some photos. He should have known better given his experience working with the bears, and recognized that the bears were cubs and kept an eye on his surroundings. Either way, he was lucky to survive and went on to have a full recovery, narrowly escaping his final affliction.